Hello and welcome to a transfer window special. I'm delighted to say that at the beginning of this January window, we've got something very, very interesting for all of you in store. I'm Ian McGarry, and joining me as always is Duncan Castles. But much more importantly, I'm delighted to say we are joined by one of the leading technical directors in world football, a man who most of you, our listeners, are familiar with. He has made his name working at Real Madrid, Monaco, and Lille, as well as coaching in Portugal. And his work has generated over, and get this, 1 billion euros in transfer fees from players who he has identified, recruited, and then sold on by the clubs that he has worked for. It is, of course, Mr. Luis Campos. Welcome to the pod, Luis.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Duncan. First of all, I want to thank you for the invitation to participate in this podcast. It is an honor to be here and exchange ideas with you about this wonderful game that is football. And you give to me the opportunity to speak, to practice my English because I stayed last 8 years in France, and this is a good opportunity for me too. Thank you very much.
A man who generates more than 1 billion euros in player sales, Luis, I think English is your last worry, as well as the fact your English is very good. Let's just start with right today. The window opened obviously on Saturday. We're in a very strange period, Luis, regarding the pandemic and also the economic situation in football. What's your expectations of what will happen in the next 3 to 4 weeks with regards to transfers around Europe and indeed globally?
Think that this market will reflect the current situation that everyone goes through. A few days ago, I heard an economic expert say that the market values would be at the level of the year 2015. So I think that right now there are more clubs borders thinking about selling players and lowering salaries because there are many clubs in deficit. Then club borders wanting to please coaches and fans who habitually take advantage of the January market to make adjustment to their squad and become more competitive. It was a moment that demands a lot of responsibility from the managers and that demands more creativity and patience from the coach and supporters. I do not believe in markets with many economic movements or large amounts of money. I do not believe. It is and could be a great opportunity for clubs to create new forms of business, namely by exchanging players in the form of loans or the sharing of player past property. Is a difficult moment for everybody and for the football too.
Luis, in the summer window, which obviously was also affected by this pandemic, the equal highest transfer fee commitment paid by a club was for one of your signings, 80 million euros that you achieved from Napoli for Victor Osimhen. Can you see another of the players that you signed for Leo before you left the club, Sven Botman, being a player who moves in this window and perhaps being a player that achieves the highest transfer fee in this January window as well?
Sven Botman is perhaps for many the biggest revelation of this first phase of the biggest five championship. Very few choose that he could play at this level. And I think it will still evolve more. Economically speaking, I think he exploded at the wrong time. But as I said a moment ago, I do not foresee that there will be transfers in January with the value of that of Vitor Osimhen. Botman is a player with a big potential. Uh, I believe in next season he play in the high level, but economically this is not the time for this kind of price like Vitor Osimhen.
No, not to reach that price clearly, because Lille, as well as most of the clubs in France, are affected by the Media Pro issues and having less revenue from broadcast. But I guess if we're expecting a depressed market, maybe we can expect some of the clubs who have a little bit of money left, such as the English clubs, to take advantage of Lille's situation and try and get a player like Botman at a cheaper price than the one you would have expected him to achieve from that evolution when you signed him from Ajax in the summer.
But in my opinion, Lille have to in this moment the opportunity to win the championship, because the reality is the best year of the whole project. So Lille have, in my opinion, a very good team, a very good coach, a very good conditions for this season. Take the title, take its champion of France, and I like the mentality. Uh, I think is a great opportunity for the club. I think the club need thinking very well before selling players like Sven Bender.
You've been there before, of course, with Monaco, taking the French title from Paris Saint-Germain, from the Qatar-owned club with the second most expensive squad in world football. Tell us a bit about how you went about building that squad of great talents at Monaco was able to achieve that on a far smaller budget than their main competitor in the league.
I understand the question and I will answer. But the truth is that I appreciate my work more for the change, for the better, the level of many players previously like know to the general public, and also for the level of game quality and sport results that these two clubs did, than for the money that this transfer made. But I realized a long time ago that more and more club management cannot be done at different speeds. The sporting side of a club must go alongside the economic side, and vice versa. And I went through this dilemma very recently. We can't have a club at two speeds. In answer to the question, I think that in these two projects, we practically tripled the investment. In 4 years of players chosen by me and my work team at Monaco, for one investment of around 300 million, we have very close to €1 billion in sales in 4 years. In Lille, in 3 years, for about 125, 135 millions, we did close to 350 to 400. So for me, the most importantly too is I live a heard that in normal market not under these current conditions, is worth more than 300 million euros in Lille. So, in this economical side, I think we made a good job.
Lush, I'm intrigued by the success rate that you have achieved. And yes, I know I hear you when you say you're mentioning your scouts as well. But one of the hardest things in football, I know from working in the industry for 25 years now, is identifying a player with potential. But it's even harder to identify a player who has talent and potential, and then identifying a player who is going to realize that and become a great player rather than just one with talent and the possibility of being a top footballer. Uh, is there a secret to that? Is it, what I mean, is there? Can you give us some insight into how you identify and then develop those players? And obviously, Kylian Mbappe is a brilliant example. Someone who has rocketed uh, from being a player with raw talent to being one of the best players in the world.
Uh, is I'm very classical in this, but I understand very well the importance of a very good scouting. Uh, Today is the most important, the most difficult is not say this player is good, this player is a top player. If I come with my brother to the stadium, I believe my brother say this is the best player in this game, and normally give the right answer. But the most difficult is made the projection of this player in my team, in the ADN of my club, in the style of playing of my team, in the profile of player like my coach think is better for the team. So made the projection is the most difficult in scouting. Uh, we need study very well because make a team is like an architect, a good architect. Uh, is like made a puzzle. Sometimes you buy a top right back, a very offensive right back, but in front of him you have a top winger too, and this winger, the best skill is one against one in the line. So maybe this top right back, very offensive right back, he need the space in front of him for attacking. Maybe he's not the player you need for your puzzle is beautiful in the final. So made a good scouting is not only statistics. Statistics is very important in scouting. In scouting, is not only see the games, but is to understand the game. Is understand very well my team. Is understand very well projection very well this player in my team. So I think is a part of success. And after and the people every time forget this situation is you need the philosophy of the club. In the philosophy of the club, you need give the opportunity to these players playing. So sometimes you take a top players, and these players don't have the opportunity. I speak every time in three different speeds for one talent arriving and made success. It depend if he's young, depend of the age of maturation. No, we have different peoples with a different stage of maturation. So sometimes the player have 20 years and thinking like a man with 35, or sometimes you have a players with 35 years old and thinking like a boy with 16. So uh, different age, different maturation, different speeds. And the second speed is the adaptation to a new situation. So sometimes go more fast, speak the same language, the food is different, people is different, coach is different. And the last speed, it's speed to arriving the right moment for playing, the opportunity to playing. Sometimes in front of him, he have a top player, and he is a top player too, and the opportunity don't arrive. So is complex, but with a good and top philosophy in the club, we are arriving in the best way.
So, so what you're saying, Luis, is you can't just do it by picking the most talented players, even if you have the biggest budget in football. You can't just go and say, I want these 22 players who are the best 22 players in the European game. You have to take into account not only the identification of the talent, but also the philosophy of the club, what the supporters expect to see, and the history of the club, and the coach they're working with, the kind of football he wants to play. And all of this within the context of matching one player to the rest of the team, because they have to work as a unit rather than as a group of individuals on the pitch.
Yes, the football is a collective sport, not individual sport. It's a collective sport. If you want playing well, you need playing with the good players too. And the most important for me is like the the teamwork. So you need create neurons. You need create the good links with everybody. Sometimes you take the best. So if you made the exercise, you take the best 11 players in the world and you put him in playing the Premier League. Maybe you are not champion. Maybe because sometimes these players don't linking well, don't the characteristics, potential, don't make the right connections, uh, and I, I believe is very important. Is very important. Should like you say, uh, you need to know the city, the club, its story, the DNA, and after with what style of player the fans cheer, what team's game model and the profile of player desired by the coach, and then they I like then compare and discuss with me or which players in an us can enter in our puzzle. The architecture of a team is much more complex than choosing only good players. You need to project them on our team, understand your connection with other teammates, understand what our coach is going to ask you to do. Designing a player who plays in another league with other players in other forms or styles of play and placing him in our team, in our puzzle, is not for everyone. The projection is for, my opinion, is for real experts. The scouting process is much more complex than most people think. And I still maintain a very classic side, even using IT technology in my algorithm. Uh, to finish this topic, I leave two small provocations. Isn't easier in this COVID time make more mistakes in scouting? Why? You have all heard of players who are phenomenal in trainments, and then with the stadium full of fans and more pressure, they disappear. Is this not the time for this type of player? When the public returns, will some of the players who revealed themselves in the last year, these players play at the same level? So thinking in that. And the second provocation is, why invest in scouting if the club does not create conditions for these players to express and or develop their full potential? So the scouting process is complex and needs stud and hours for understand what is the best player for the building a top team.
You mentioned the investment in scouting there, and the ability for that investment to be turned into something effective on the field. I'm interested in the number of scouts you use at your clubs, because we have some clubs in the Premier League who've spent millions of pounds on building a network of up to 60 scouts, working in tandem with very expensive analytic data analysis teams. If I recall correctly, at Monaco you worked with just 6 super scouts, I think you called them.
Mhm.
Do you still are you still able to do the job and outcompete other teams with just 6 scouts as opposed to 60 that a Premier League club might have?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about my method that I started to develop more specifically when I worked at Real Madrid.
Hmm.
I developed my own algorithm. All details count, even the smallest. The data results allow me a brutal reduction in the number of players to study. It's true.
Okay.
Observations on video and then exhaustively live for me are essential, as well as the new tools that allow us to better understand the mental profile of a player. But I like the comparative method. So I'm not in favor of very large scouting teams. I like I like I said before, discuss with my scouts. First, get to know the city, the club, the story of the club, the DNA of the club, what style of player the fans cheer, what the team's game model, profile of player desired by the coach, and then discuss how, 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 how each player in analysis can enter better in our puzzle. So uh, I like a comparative method. In the moment we take the decision, um, I like to discuss with my 6 with me 7 super scouts for for this comparison, player by player, who is the best in the last 6 numbers, who is really for for our quantity of money, what is really the best player for our team.
You,
Lewis, there's been a big movement in recent years towards science-based uh, analysis of football players. Obviously, statistics and data analysis has played a massive
Mhm.
part. Would you ever recommend signing a player unless you'd met the player face to face, spoken to him, spoken to his family, and found out about what he's like as a person?
Of course. So for me, for example, I say before, I'm very classic too in this in my algorithm. I give to you an example. Uh, I go 1 hour before the game. If I go see playing in live, 1 hour before I'm in the stadium. Why? Because I like study the body language of the player in the warm up. For me, it's very important. I like after the game or in the week, maybe dinner, or take some minutes with the player for understand this body language. Uh, I remember in my life 2 or 3 episodes. I changed my idea in the moment I understand better the mentality or the level of the player in this discussion. So the high level is for smart people too. So I, I think I think we need to understand very well the mentality of the player, and the body language is fundamental. And I believe too in the today with the Instagram, Facebook, it's possible to study the personality. You are more near to understand the mental profile of the player. So today we have these tools for understand the profile, the mental profile, and the mental profile is, if you want building a top team, the mental profile is very very important.
you talk about exhaustively watching players, Luis. I
Yeah.
believe in 2018 you received an award from an airline company for traveling more miles on their planes than any other customer in that year.
Because uh, if you pay, okay, the prices of Lille 5 after 10 finish with 20 million for one player, uh, it's, it's not possible made a mistake. So you you need as much money. You need to understand very well if he's the right player for your team. So you need to the player exhaustively. You need I think the data analysis is very very important. But I believe too in these sensibilities. You need to understand very well the player. You need see him playing many times in life for understand if he's possible. He made, for example, central back. in this position is like is married with the other central back you have in the team. If you take other, it's like a marriage.
Mhm.
So you need it's not possible make the mistakes. It's very expensive if you made a mistake. So we need to work a lot for understand if he's the best player.
How many miles did you fly that year in 2018?
I don't remember. I don't know. It's because it's the time for building this team of Lille now,
Hmm.
and because you don't building a team in 1 year. You need normally for like a projects like Lille and Monaco. We need 3 years for 3 4 years for the team is in the in the height um, in the height level. So we need travel a lot for you need to work a lot, not only travel because you travel a lot. You see the players for in the world for every part of the world. But after I remember, I go to Mexico for see 2 games or 3 games, and I return for see my team playing, and I'm in the first tournament of the week because we need put the we need to work in the philosophy of the club. We need put this super mentality to win inside the club. So you need give the conditions for your players, for your coach, for everybody near to the team. So uh, this is a sport director is a complex to is a complex job, but it's fantastic.
Luis, perhaps you could give a practical example of how you operate in terms of identifying a player. So, for instance, we know that Manchester United are looking for a left-sided, left-footed centre back to play beside Harry Maguire. Now, if you were mandated to find one for them, who do you think would be on your recruitment list, and how would you go about that?
Although I know this Manchester United well, I think I would need to study the situation much more deeply. So there are not many names of central backs with left foot who can play for United. There are not many. You are one or two with a big experience, but you are only 2 or 3 more names, young players with strong potential and with these characteristics to playing in Manchester United. No more. Everybody speak about Botman, for example, and Botman could be a very good candidate. He have a good potential, but Man United has always been one of the best academy in the world. I think today Rashford is one of the best players in the world. Just uh, just as I really appreciate McTominay, for example, or Greenwood. Perhaps in the academy there is a player with these characteristics. That's that is why I say that before deciding, it is necessary to study each case a lot. The solution is often at home, other times not. So I believe in work. I believe we need stood very well, and Manchester United is one of the best 5 clubs in the world, and is not possible made mistakes. So we need made a perfect decision, perfect job.
Luis, we've talked a lot about the importance and the way you go about identifying talent, but you kind of mentioned that the technical director job isn't simply about recruitment. There's other sides to the position that are important if you want to build a winning football team. What do you what's in your experience at Monaco and Leo, also at Real Madrid, when you were working primarily on the scouting side? What are those aspects of being a technical director that you have to have on top of getting the recruitment right?
Scouting is an important part of the job of a modern sport director. But but the role of sport director requires many other skills. Managing and coordinating a team sport project is fascinating. It practically absorbs your whole day. To be a sport director is to be the guardian of the sports project. You can adapt to the circumstance, but you cannot change direction all the time. So you have to create conditions so that the coach and the players can play their role to the utmost perfection. All the little details count. You can only demand the maximum. We are talking about high competition. If you show them that you give the maximum. So every day the level of demand is very high. To win one match day, the levels of demand, rigor, discipline, and focus, concentration must also be at the maximum level on training days. You have to meeting to organize, building, I don't know, develop, coordinate the technical department, the medical department, the player care teams, the performance optimizations teams, analyzing teams, the press conference, the security. So everything has to work with the utmost rigor, demand, and teamwork. Everyone who contacts players and coach knows that they have to work to win. This philosophy has to exist inside the club. When I started playing very young, the coach did everything. Today, a good sport director helps a good coach to be a better coach, and vice versa. Why? Because it allows him to concentrate more on the task of training, preparing the game, managing egos. Being a coach is such an arduous and busy task, especially with the incredible increase in the number of games. The trainer must be focused on the essential of his work. You cannot waste and disperse energy in small problems. And every day there are small problems. And the sum of small problems usually become later a big problem. So that's because, in my opinion, made a good scouting is is very important. But if you want is a top modern sport director requires many other skills.
Luis, could you just tell us how your relationship with Jose Mourinho came about and what it was like to work with them at Real Madrid for those 2 years between 2011 and 2013?
Jose is a Jose is a friend. He's he's a great friend, and my experience with him in Real Madrid is an amazing experience. Um, Not only with him, but with the players too. In this moment, I understand, from example, with what what is the difference of these top players and the other players. If you see a game in Champions League with the best teams, and you put a TV, you see in TV, in other TV, other game from other championship. The difference in these players, in these moments, in the modernity of football, is the reception of the ball and the first touch. So if the player don't have a good reception or first touch, is not possible playing in the high level. In this moment in Madrid, I remember the players like Benzema, Cristiano, I don't know, Ozil, top players, and big difference is the reception is sinking. So not everybody is possible make this reception of the ball. Not everybody is possible playing. Not for everybody is possible playing in one touch. So with Jose, I have the opportunity to understand the importance of Ricard, the demand, the everyday give the maximum, the importance of the work. So these moments in Madrid for me is amazing school of life, is amazing school of the university, is the doctorate for understand well what is the best football in the world.
You mentioned the speed of play being important in the modern game. Can you talk a bit more about that and what you focus on top of that receiving the ball in the first touch when you're assessing players for different leagues?
Because in the last 10 years, 15 years, maybe, you have a big changement in the conditions for training and conditions for playing. You have a big changement. Lately, the training and game conditions have evolved very quickly, which forced the new profile of players today. Runs are fast and almost always perfect. Even when it rains too much, the sweaters don't get heavier in the rain. The player boots look like made in NASA in their good times, which changed the most. My opinion is the speed of the ball and the distance the ball travels in a game. In the good teams, she's bigger than the sum of the 11 players in the game.
So the good in good teams, the ball travels faster and further than the players do because we have lots of emphasis now on running statistics in modern football. But you're saying that what's actually important is how quickly the team moves the ball rather than how far they run as individuals.
I agree 100%. It's the difference in the last 10, 50 years is the speed of the ball, not only the speed of the players. Of course, if you are not fast, you are in difficulty in the modern game. But with the conditions of the fields, new stadiums, training conditions, the ball, new balls, uh, everything is everything put more speed in the ball. So that's because the modern player need is top in the reception the ball or in the first touch because everything is fast. And I say reception is thinking because before reception you need thinking. So it made the difference in the football actual. So I give to you one example. Uh, I believe you have some top players 10, 50 years ago. It's not possible playing in this new football. But this verse is true. Maybe you have, because the football is completely different. Maybe it's not for possible for these new top talents playing like 10, 15 years ago with the fields not every time in good conditions, with the sweaters with more 3 kilos. So it is the speed of the ball, playing fast, not only running fast, is the most important in the actual football.
Something else that's changed in modern football is the salaries, and the salaries for players who are at relatively early stages in their career. So you have Premier League clubs paying sometimes over £30,000 a week to academy signings, and the media profile and social media profile of the players and their ability to uh, express themselves directly to supporters and question the direction of their clubs at times in via those social media channels. How important as a technical director is it to deal with those two factors when you're building a winning football team?
The, the the new the new generation of players works completely differently than players from 5 or 10 years ago. The stimuli to which they were educated are completely different. It is the time of high tech and digital. I often play with them and say that they are the PlayStation generation. It is it's the PlayStation generation for me. They sleep less, eat worse, and spend more hours in the PlayStation than training or recovering for the next game. The stimuli have to have light, color, movement, and that is good. But if you lose it, no problem. It doesn't have a big consequences. If you will know that you lost, why? Because most of the time you don't know who you are playing against. You don't know them personally. So you can reset and play again right away. You do not suffer a few days for having lost. You are not criticized in the press the next day. You can compete all the time and you play alone against another. So you make the decision yourself. You have no other person to say what you should do. Growing up without a street has made them more selfish because they spend much more time alone. There is less sense of team. There is a much worse relationship with hierarchies. They don't like others to decide for them because they are used to deciding on their own. And these often cause strong conflicts between generations, even with the older players in the locker room. There is a huge amount of work to be done in the players' academies so that they can quickly realize that there are hierarchy to respect, times to respect, orders to respect. The problem is not the PlayStation. I think the PlayStation is spectacular. The problem is to transfer to real life. And that is our responsibility. It is a responsibility of the elders. We have to reformulate the way we educate. This extended weekend, I saw in TV about 9 or 10 complete games from different championships. One of the warning signs of not respecting the hierarchy is the number of young players who protested when they were replaced by their coach. Amazing. There were more than 18% who had clearly visible gesture of disagreement and some with some gravity. So never has the number of these protests reached such a high level. This causes major problem in a team's relationship. Players, in my opinion, have the right to think that they shouldn't be ones to leave the game, but you have no right to protest in this moment. You have to respect the coach's decision. Maybe later in the first training session of the week, we can try understand why we left the game. But in this moment, you have to respect the coach's decision. And we have to work these aspects strongly in the academies. We have to educate for the better, not for the worse. So I think if the sport director is the guardian of sport project by one for one team for one club, he have a big responsibility in this. We need to work in this very fast.
You mentioned that analysis of players coming off the pitch showing dissent. Was Bruno Fernandes being taken off before the end of the game against Aston Villa? Was that one of the matches you watched, and would that qualify as his reaction when Solskjaer substituted him? Would that qualify as dissent in your analysis?
You have more and more and more protested of the player for understand the coach decision, and I think this is not good for the team. I think this is not good for the club. So I think the new generation need to understand the importance of the hierarchy. Don't For me, it's not important the name of the player.
Mhm.
So Bruno Fernandes is a top player. He playing in one of the best team in the world. He's a big example for the young players. But in my opinion, is the people with the bigger responsibility in the academies, in the clubs, need made understand the players the importance of respect of the hierarchy. If you still like that, I believe in the future you, we have a big problem. So maybe it's a good moment for everybody in this difficult moment made a good reflection. This is not good for the players. This is not good for coach. This is not good for sport direct. This is not good for the president. This is not good for the supporters. I believe we need made thinking very very well in this situation.
Luis, you officially left Lille in the last few days. What are your plans now in terms of your next job or your career path?
I'm ambitious. I'm ambitious. Only a few days ago, I'm free, so I made in the last time I made a big and important reflections. Um, I don't know what's happening in the future, but with my ambition, with my capacity of work, I I think is a good moment for take uh, big project, um, maybe with big names, um, and win championships and uh, more with more regularity. I have a big pleasure in the last two projects I work. A big pleasure in Monaco, a big pleasure in Lille. But maybe it's the moment to return to other style of club, to other style of project. So I need thinking in that. I made my reflections and I wait for the best situation for me.
There's interest from the biggest clubs in the biggest leagues in European football. When you're making that decision, what are the most important factors in deciding which club to go to? Because as you say, it is a different type of project, Monaco and Leo, to going to one of the absolute elite clubs in world football. You're not buying players to make profits. It's more focused on getting those big decisions that we discussed earlier, a left-sided central defender for Manchester United, exactly right, and delivering titles with, as you say, regularity.
My goal number one is to win. So so because of course in Monaco I don't win with the regularity. I win in like I win before in Madrid. Uh, but I win my project. I is a different win. So
Yeah.
it's a different kind of win. So in the moment I take the decision don't still in Monaco, arriving this proposal from Lille, and I say, okay, for me is I need proof for everybody is possible building one second time this kind of project, um, and my work is there. So maybe it's the moment to I don't know. Maybe it's the moment to change for another kind of project with other typology, with other. But the goal number one is to win. I need to win for live. So uh, I like work a lot. I'm a workman, so I believe in the next month. Uh, I hope take the best decision for my life.
Luis, would you like to work in the Premier League in England?
Premier League is. I'm a big fan, a big supporter of the style of playing in England. I like the speed. I like the fast transitions. I like this style of playing. Um, I like the complexity of the games. He's big, a good coach, top players. Of course, if arriving a nice top project for me in England, with a big pleasure for me. I go inside and I arriving with my methodology, my philosophy and my capacity to a big capacity to work.
When Manchester United first started talking about appointing a director of football, and it's obviously something they still haven't implemented, your friend Jose Mourinho recommended you for that role. Do you see yourself working with Jose again in the future at some point?
Like I say before, Jose is a friend. He's a big friend, a great friend. So we talk or exchange message constantly. We have enormous respect for each other. We do not live with the obsessions to return to work together. If it happens again one day, it will come with naturality. So uh, Jose for me is top friend, big friend. So I think if one day it's possible work together, it will come naturally. So uh, I don't know what's happening in the future, but I think we don't have this obsession to return to work together. If it happens again one day, it will come naturally.
Lush, we certainly hope to see you at some point working in the Premier League. You'd be very welcome here anytime. And
Thank you.
we also thank you very much for the time you've given to us today and the fascinating insight into your work and your experience in football. It has been a real pleasure, and we're very grateful for that.
I'm gonna because Luis, it's the transfer window podcast. I'm just gonna return us to recruitment and signings for a final question. And I know it's a difficult one. Amongst all those players you've signed and who have gone on to be top performers in world football, which recruitment makes you most proud in perhaps the spotting of a player that others had cast aside, who's turned into a top star, a top performer at Champions League winners, or any of the many players you've signed in the past?
It's a difficult question, but I will speak specifically of three or four players now well known to English football fans. For example, Fabinho, today at Liverpool, was a brilliant deal for a spectacular player and person. I remember Fabinho in Marília, small club in Brazil near São Paulo, in Copa São Paulo. And after see Fabinho playing in Liverpool, for me is amazing sensation. I'm proud of him. For example, Anthony Martial, we buy him to Lyon for 5 million. And Bernardo Silva, in the moment we take him for Monaco, he did not play for Benfica. And now the English public supporters is now discovering the Gabriel in Arsenal. We bought from Avaí in Brazil for 3 million euros 3 or 4 years ago. So I'm proud for this player. This players everybody knows in England, and so it's top players. Before nobody know him, and now everybody recognizes the quality of these players. So I'm very proud for participated in the moment, in important moment life of this boy.
Even just hearing you talk about those players, Luis, reminds us all exactly what an amazing job you've been doing in your career, given the amount of pleasure that those players have given fans in the Premier League since moving here. And it's been a real pleasure to get your insight, which has been fascinating, and to hear your stories of your work and experience today on this transfer window podcast special. Um, we hope to have you back on at some point in the future, and certainly
Thank you.
we would love to see you, as I said, working here in the Premier League in England at some point. Thank you very much, Luis Campos. If you have liked today what you have heard, then please give us a 5-star review on iTunes. You can subscribe to the Transfer Window podcast on YouTube. Please turn on all your notifications, and you'll be first to be alerted when the next pod is published. Please join the discussion with us there, as well as at the Transfer Podcast on our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And individually, Duncan is at Duncan Castles, and I'm at Garbo SJ. That's it for today's very special Transfer Window pod. We will be with you later this week. Until then, stay safe, be well, and thanks for listening.